You're watching On Demand. Please check the closing time before trying to vote or enter any competition or other interactivity in this programme, as it may not count and you may still be charged.
Hello and welcome to Loose Women and having a good old chit-chat this lunchtime with me, Kay Adams. It's Linda Robson, Nadia Zawalha and Jane Moore. Coming up today, is it time to stop telling new mums that breast is best? We're opening up about the struggles that we had in those first precious few days. Also today, two divisive dilemmas. Would you turn all Miss Marple and investigate someone's internet date if you thought they were a bit dodgy? And at 10 to 1, how would you react if your other half asked for a gap year from your marriage? You've got 15 minutes to wait for that one, Linda. Go your jet.
She's raring to go.
Go your jet.
I'm on one today.
We're going to talk about breastfeeding first. Campaigners are urging a rethink of the widely used reluctant feeder policy in some NHS trusts, not all, which instructs maternity staff not to intervene or offer a bottle of formula if a newborn doesn't feed for up to 48 hours. Campaigners say there's an outdated obsession with breastfeeding in maternity units. So, Nadia, do you think it's time we refocus? 48 hours?
Well, you know,
feels like a long time.
My friend Rachel, my homeopath, she did exactly that with her son. She had a difficult birth and she waited 48 hours. He was screaming, but then he latched on and he ate really well. I mean, they wouldn't be saying that if it was dangerous to a baby.
No.
So, obviously, medically, it's safe to do it. I think any woman should do what feels right for them. But what I would say is, I feel really lucky, though I resented it at the time, that my sister was the one that put all the pressure on me when I was going to give up, because I found it really, really hard. It's really, really difficult. And I really wanted to breastfeed my children, because there's no doubt about it, the breast milk is better for babies. And so she pushed me at a point that I was ready to give up. I did give up for a bit, then I went back to it. And I'm really glad that I did. But I do think it's wrong. We carry so much guilt as parents. In those first few days when you're a mum, is finding the balance between where are you supporting the woman.
Breast is best for those women who either can or choose not to or whatever. That statement in itself,
but it should be breast is best, but if you can't manage it, then there's understanding.
Still, does that make you feel kind of second-rate? I don't know.
I mean, I just think, you know, I'm no earth mother, as we all know, but I just think if you find breastfeeding easy and that's what you want to do, great. But if you don't, equally, as you said, there should be the support there for you. And I do worry. You say, you know, that obviously it's not harmful to baby, the 48 hours, but what about the mum? It would be incredibly stressful to go for 48 hours without anybody intervening to help if you're struggling.
And if your baby's screaming for 40
hours.
Well, yeah. I can't imagine they're just, you know, let them cry, but you will be... I mean, funny enough, it did happen with Bonnie. With Charlie, she breastfed quite enthusiastically. Bonnie was... lazy little devil. That's what you say now, don't you? But at the time, it didn't feel like that. She just wasn't feeding. And between us, we just weren't managing it. And she actually had to go back into hospital because she wasn't putting on weight.
Well, sometimes babies are really sleepy when they're first born, and they haven't got the energy.
I mean, I can say that now, looking back, 14 years on. At the time,
it's devastating.
It was hell. Yeah. I mean, it really... You felt like you were starving your baby. I mean, it was just awful.
Well, that's exactly how I felt, because I had Lauren 38 years ago. And 38 years ago, you were in hospital for 7 to 10 days. 10 days in cesarean.
Can you imagine?
And 7 days when you had a baby. So you felt safe there. And I tried my hardest to feed Lauren, but I found it the most painful thing in the world, honestly. I had cracked nipples, I was putting cabbage leaves on there, I was doing everything. I was sitting crying, dreading feeding her.
Did they help you, though?
They did try their hardest to help me. But it just wasn't for me. And I felt really bad, and I thought, I'm not a good mother, you know, I can't breastfeed my child and everything. But then Lauren had Lila and Betsy, and she was struggling breastfeeding, and the midwife came to her house and just showed her to hold the baby in a different position, like under her arm, and latch onto her breast like that, and she found that much easier.
I think that's a really important point, though, because, like, if somebody's watching now and they're really struggling with it, it was the lowest point after having a baby's breastfeeding, because it isn't just a case of, and they latch on. And the thing is, if you get support, like lots of women, it can be a simple thing like that of just changing position. And so... Is that pressure, or is that a woman being helped to...
I mean, the health authorities are in a difficult position.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing your best. And just to say, and it's important, obviously, because as you say, Nadia, if there's people sitting out there in that situation and struggling, I mean, when we're talking about after 24 hours if the baby hasn't breastfed, you know, reassure the mother, continue to hand express 2 to 3 hours every 2 to 3 hours, and that continues even if the baby is a so-called reluctant feeder.
I think where people are in and out now, they don't get a chance for the nurses to help them.
It really
They're in for like 12 hours
Yeah.
sometimes, or 24 hours, and then they're sent home.
So
to
I
their
don't
own
know where this
devices.
pressure is coming from,
But
because
I
it seems
felt
to me
that
you have to get home as fast as you
breastfeeding
can.
was more painful than the actual childbirth itself.
Yeah, it can.
Because you have the baby, but with the breastfeeding, you have every time you put it up. Anyway.
And Jane, I mean, did you feel that pressure or not?
Well, when I had Ellie, so that was what, how old is she now? 28, that was 28 years ago. I remember somebody came up to me in the ward and said, you know, the whole breast is best thing. And I did try it, a bit like you, Linda. And I went home and I kept saying it's so painful. And then you had the health visitor come round and she was helping me. And Ellie was just crying, couldn't get enough milk. So after about a couple of weeks, I gave up and gave her foot, and it was such a relief because the formula filled her up. And when it came to Grace, I have to say, I was in hospital and I remember sort of seeing out the corner of my eye the breastfeeding advocate or whatever they're called coming, and I just went, no, not for me, not doing it.
But, you know, I think it's really important to say that if you struggle with it and you do really want to do it, there is a way to get support. Yeah. And when it clicks, if you're desperate to do it, it's the most amazing feeling. And I need to apologise because that was my phone, which was very unprofessional if you heard
No, that's quite all right. I wonder what it was. Well, I mean, it is a long time ago, but I would like to say, although we had a really difficult time for us, the support that we got from the Queen Mums in Glasgow was phenomenal. There was a lady called Rosemary, and I'll always be grateful to Rosemary. I mean, she had Bonnie draped over my shoulder. She had her on a rubber ring round here. I mean... God knows, she should have turned out to be a gymnast. But she was a wonderful, wonderful person, and she was just such a huge support. So everyone's trying to do their best.
Don't be embarrassed to reach out and just ask
and
for
don't
help.
feel like a failure if you can't
and if if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a poll, and the results of the poll are that those of you who think that breastfeeding should... Well, I'm waiting for somebody to breastfeed this into my ear.
Come on, work it.
Come on, work it. Come on, breastfeed it into my ear. 35% said yes, yes, and what was the question? There we go. 35% of people felt they did feel guilty for giving up breastfeeding, and of course that means how many didn't, Linda?
65%.
Yay! That was seamless. I think we got away with that. I mean, unfortunately, your telephone got off in the middle, kind of spoiled it. But
very unprofessional. Very unprofessional.
It was perfect.
I've never done that before.
Now, have you had a summer of love this year? Well, the boss of dating app Tinder says they're busier than ever. He would say that, wouldn't he? But there is a notable change, he says, when it comes to those summer swipers. People now want to get to know people first a lot more before they decide to even match with them, let alone before they decide to actually go and meet somebody. But if one of your mates went ahead and met someone and you felt a wee bit unsure about them, would you turn detective and just, you know, dig a bit of dirt on them? Now, we know that you would, Linda, wouldn't you?
Let's try and guess what, Linda.
I would definitely. I'd be really worried.
But to what extent?
I would follow them. I would say, I'm coming with you. I'll sit in a corner somewhere and I'll just keep an eye on it, make sure it's not a serial killer or a murderer or something.
Would you wear like a beige Mac?
I would have a Mac on or a hat on, be reading a newspaper with a hole in the newspaper.
And what would you do if it was a serial killer?
I would say, right, out of here now. If I didn't like them, I'd be watching, make sure they didn't slip anything in their drinks and all of that, honestly. Because
but you wouldn't have done that in the old days if your friend just met somebody in a wine bar, would you?
But still, if they were going to meet someone that they'd only met once, I might say, I'll come along just to make sure you're all right. Definitely, 100% if it was one of my kids. I mean, I've checked them all out already. You know,
would you ask their permission, your kids' permission? Would you say, look, I'm just going to be sitting...
If they said no, I'd go anyway.
Right, OK.
Just to make sure they're all right. You never know, do you? There's some strange people out there. There really
You can't
is.
live like that, Linda. You can't suspect that
They're all
everyone is going to
older
do
now.
you
They've all got
harm.
partners, so I don't have to worry about it. But when Lila and Betsy grow up, I'll be doing exactly the same with them.
Oh, my God. I couldn't be bothered, to be honest. I mean, you know, if they're adults, they've got to get on with it. I mean, that everyone is on dating apps these days. And I think you're right, Jane. I think we have to just accept whenever you meet a new person, you're not entirely sure who they are, where they come from.
No, but you have to just take all the usual precautions like you always would have done. Meet for the first time in a public place with lots of other people around.
And they never look like their pictures either, do they?
Well, I always say to my...
Tell us
They always
about
knock 10 years off
I
themselves.
always say to my girls, listen, the best place to meet somebody is either at work or somewhere where you're seeing them regularly. Like, I watch, like, everyone I've been out with,
I've
I've
met
met
anymore.
Them. What do you mean?
Well, there's rules, isn't there? There's rules and regulations.
Rules about what? Rules about...
Well, you know, the old days in the workplace, we just did what we want when we want. But now...
And we did it quite a lot.
We did.
I did it a lot.
Especially on lunch breaks. No, I'm joking.
Excuse me, I got a child. My first child was from an office romance. Thank you very much. Probably wouldn't be allowed now. But no, there's all sorts of rules and regulations now in place with health and safety and all that. You have to, you know, depending on whether you're the boss and they're an in-support, you know, there's rules.
Well, I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't have kids. Met Mark. Mark and I were working on a dating show together. Actually, when I think back to all my relationships, I've met everyone at work.
Isn't it best?
This is the advice I've given my
them?
kids since they were this big. What do you mean they can't meet someone at
But
work?
you get to know somebody at work, don't you? You see them for a period, you see how they operate around other people, you get to know them. But no, now, because it's like a protective thing.
It's the power dynamic.
Boss, you know, is having an affair with somebody younger, that is very much frowned upon, has to be declared to the powers that be in the early stages.
I'm just tracking back through my life and seeing all the fun I wouldn't have had.
I know. Well, that poor guy, the boss of McDonald's.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to step down because he was having a relationship with...
What, not Ronald McDonald?
Not Ronald, no. Because he was having a relationship with somebody junior, but then he was the boss, so everybody was junior. So the poor guy had nobody to have an affair with, which is a bit...
Well, he could just have had a relationship with somebody outside of the office, I suppose, is the thinking.
I agree with you, Nadia. It's a great opportunity to see how people relate to other people, you know, to see whether they're fair, whether they're decent, you know, whether they're sneaky.
What about all that lovely frisson? Oh, I'm just going to get a coffee and you go and have a
I'm talking about fairness and decency, and you're going, oh, that lovely frisson.
Well, you know, I'm more of a frisson girl than you are. But, I mean, I'm just thinking about all that lost frisson. I suppose people are still doing it. They're just hiding it.
It does really work as well. I know loads of people it's really worked for, but I just would be worried if it was one of my children.
Right, are you still back on the dating
she's
app?
back on the dating
Oh, what, have we
apps
gone on to
now.
something else now?
Yes, we moved it on to meeting people. Have we kept you up?
Yes, you have. Go on, carry on.
Did you have affairs at work? I mean...
I tried. I tried my best.
I mean, dressing room love, all of that. You must have had a bit of that.
I never, ever went out with anyone from work.
You never?
No, because
Where
they're all
did you
actors
find
and they're
them
all
then?
too into themselves.
Really? I mean, we've all done some boring jobs. You need something to spice it up, don't you?
I'm so shocked that this is a rule now. I didn't know this was
In
a
some
new rule.
companies.
I know. Oh, see, Jane, in some companies. Coming up next. Would you let your other half take a year out of your marriage? Linda's read that story. She's got a lot to say about that, and I mean a lot. Don't you dare change that channel.
Love and marriage go together like a...
Welcome back. We've got a big response online to our breastfeeding discussion there. Candice says, COVID ruined it for me. I never wanted to do it with my first two and I felt pressured by the midwives. I did about 3 days with each baby. I had my son last year and really wanted to breastfeed, but I had zero support. We lasted 9 stressful weeks. So many new mums and dads just weren't able to get that support, were they? It is competition time now. If you want to win, you got to be in it. Here's all the details.
We're all about making winners at ITV, and this time it could be you. Yep, here's another chance to win our amazing two-part prize. It starts with £70,000 in tax-free cash. That's like getting £5,800 a month in your account for a whole year. And because we really want you to get a break and not stress about that dreaded bill that comes in every month, we are paying your mortgage or rent for 2 whole years up to the value of £30,000. That's a lot of spare money to add to that massive £70,000 lump. What would you do with it all?
I would have my bathroom done, the windows done, but all of it really, all my house.
I would really love to buy a holiday home, say a caravan, and treat all the family to a lovely vacation there.
Get entering now for another chance to win. Go to the website, entries cost £2. Text WIN to 86060. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Call 09068 786060. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and phone number to DY31 PO Box 7558 Derby DE1 0NQ. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close on Friday the 3rd of September at 3 p.m. Good luck.
Now, gap years, but not the kind you might think. One woman has written an honest account about how a year apart from her husband ultimately saved their marriage. But if your other half asked for a 12-month relationship rest, how would you react? Can I just ask Linda to be a fly in the wall if that ever happens?
I would ring my solicitor and say, get everything sorted out, we'll split everything down the middle, he can go his way and I'd go my way.
Well, end of,
it's like
no
when
discussion.
People say, oh, I just want a month's break. That means they don't want to be with you anymore. And to say they want a year's break, that's the end of it, isn't it?
Well, but no...
There's no going back after a year, is there? Because we'll all have moved on.
Well, I don't know.
I'll be with a nice, handsome Latin young bloke.
she's enjoying it now. You've been doing quite a little bit of Shirley Valentine recently, though.
My husband doesn't like travelling.
Right? He don't
like travelling. He don't really like going out that much. All right. So I've been going away on my own. So I just have a little mini break. So when I finished loose swimming on Friday, I went off to Southend and I stayed in a nice little hotel, the sunshine. I was on the beach.
On your own
or
with anybody else?
I meet people wherever I go. I make friends wherever I go.
Why don't you do it a year then? Do a Shirley Valentine.
For a year?
Yeah.
I'd blooming love it, I tell you. Any job that comes in and says you're going away, I'm like, yes, I'm going away.
Yeah, I mean, straight away, immediately on paper, wow, you want to take... But if you actually think about the possibilities of how that could work. I mean, Mark and I... You know, I would miss him terribly. He would miss me terribly. I love being married to him. But we do often these days just go, oh, God, do you remember when we were young, before we had kids, before we had this? You know, it's a hot day now and we get a skip and clear out the house, you know. It's like, what about just lounging around, like, drinking a bit too much and having sex where you shouldn't, and all that stuff that you used to do when you were young and free. Not in the skip. Young and free.
You can still do that.
No, yeah, but you don't, because we've all got so many responsibilities. So if we could each say to each other, do you know what? Let's have a responsibility break. Like, just as a like, crazy idea. OK, 6 months. I'm going to be completely responsible for all the bills, all the kids, everything. And you're going to have 6 months to just be you, and then vice versa. I mean, it could be the absolute end of a marriage, but it could
so you would give the other one sort of 6 months licence just to go and be 25 again?
What, and meet someone else? And what if they met someone else?
Well, I think you have to have the strength, you have to have the belief and the trust that they wouldn't.
I mean, they could meet somebody else while they're with you.
Yeah.
You know, you're not glued to each other.
No, but when they're in that mindset that they're off on their 6 months and they're carefree and they're 25 again, they're going to meet someone.
But that's just all about control and lack of trust.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we all just yearn.
And it depends, doesn't it, why they want a year.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be with you anymore.
No, I don't think that's
it is that. I think it's all about a bit of space.
Would you want the year? Would you want the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's, what's that old thing? How can I miss you if you don't go away?
You're always away.
That sounds like a great line. First lines was songs.
And I think, you know, the pandemic, etc., and a lot of us just being kind of forced into the same space for a very long period of time, it's made me realise that I do, although I go away with girlfriends mostly, but I do go away a lot because Gary stays at home.
A lot.
And so sometimes I think a little bit of breathing space keeps a marriage alive.
So if you had a year, what would you do with it?
Do you know, well, If I didn't have to do work or bills,
just
or, do you know, I would
cut
put
this.
on a rucksack and I would go travelling.
And I'd come with you.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Be
Do you know what?
lovely.
That's what I would love for Mark, because Mark is a proper traveller. You know, he really is
Yeah.
the rucksack man. And that was his absolute joy all of his life. And sometimes, and I do 100% trust him, and he does trust me, and I would love to say to him, just go and just be free of all the worries and all the everything. He's had children from a really young age. He's always been responsive. He's always worked so hard. I'd love for him to just put on a rucksack.
Yeah.
I would. It would be hard, but I think it would be true love to go on, just fly for a while, have a break from it.
So you would want it for him more than you would want it for yourself?
I kind of feel like that all the time anyway. I feel quite... I don't know, I'm a funny thing.
Yeah,
I'm always all right.
No, we won't have it.
What about you, Kay?
I wouldn't want to go off on my own.
I don't think...
If Ian said I'm going off for a year now, what would
I don't
you
think
say?
it'd be good for our relationship.
No, I don't
I
think it
don't. I
would.
think we would just go in opposite directions, because you'd fill your life with other people, probably quite successfully, you know. And
Yeah.
so, no.
I think it just has to be reciprocal. They get a bit of time away, but that means that you can as well.
I think that's...
Anyway, we've all got a plane to catch. That's sadly a shorter show today. Whatever you're doing, have yourself a wonderful afternoon. Bye for now. We'll see you very soon.
Bye. Love you, Mark.